Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins and I am your host today. Hello, Mike New. Nice to see you. Coming on just a few minutes early, still waiting for Andy Kaufman to join us today as a guest. Pretty excited to talk with him. I had the great pleasure of meeting in person this year in Mexico when we were both at Acapulco. Even though I was kind of out and down for the count, we still managed to find some time to connect. And so while we're waiting, I wanted to just make a few announcements. First of all, if anyone here is new to the King Heroes Journey podcast, it is a good platform for people to speak out who are not afraid to go against the mainstream or even the alternative, and who love the truth more than they love being right or popular. And hello, Accidental Alchemist. Nice to see you. Lamb Chop, welcome. Fantastic. So I want to make sure and let people know this week I am hosting an open house for my Journey Code Coaching Certification Training. I'm giving a talk as part of it, a brand new talk on the power of questions. So I've been a mad scientist in the back end, looking at why questions are in fact powerful. Not all the questions. There are some not good questions. And but this is leading up to the coaching training that is starting in September with an orientation on the 10th of September. And so this Wednesday at 1:30 p.m., you can join me for this talk if you have an interest in helping people, but you don't want to just listen to people's problems all day, which people sometimes think coaching is about, and that's not the case for us at all. The training, like I said, doesn't start until September. The early bird is on until August 6th only. So just want to let you know about that. You can also visit my website to do a King Hero archetype quiz. And in 10 minutes, you find out where on the path of purpose that you are. In the coaching training, we do a lot of work on the archetypes and the hero's journey, how to coach with archetypes, and be able to find very quickly where people are stuck without having to get them to replay all of the problems that they currently have or have had in their life, really different from any kind of therapy situation that you might be more familiar with. The power of questions is definitely something that I use in my role as a podcast host. It's one of my favorite all-time things to do. We are live, by the way, on YouTube and Facebook. We're live on X, Rumble, and Vigilante TV. And for those of you that like podcasts, you can always download them after the fact from Spotify and iTunes and a whole bunch of other platforms there as well. So the last thing I'll talk about while we're waiting for Andy is that in the House of Free Will, we have started to do some law roundtables. It's a subject that I have kind of left on the back burner because I was running out of good people to interview and host for workshops and talks. But we got a little bit of a renaissance going on there, and it's some good and real stuff. There's a lot of fake and gay stuff in the alternative law world. We probably won't get into it with Andy today. We're going to talk about the evolution that occurred for him from going from a mainstream medical practitioner psychiatrist to a natural one, especially in the last 5 and 6 years. We're going to talk about leadership and responsibility in the natural health freedom movement, which is absolutely ginormous. And maybe some of you have seen some fallout around that. I have myself now. We're going to talk about a few natural health psyops that he feels to be important, like colloidal silver. We're going to talk about psychiatry and psych meds because that's something that came to my attention in a big way in the last few years as well. And we'll talk about the future, where he thinks humanity's heading, where the truth movement is going, what inspires him to keep going. And then recently I actually got invited by the Free Birth Society to come and do an interview with them. They didn't even know that I had done a free birth myself by some people's definition of that, and they seemed to agree. They were actually wanting to get me on to talk about the birth certificate and registering babies and those kind of things. So that will be really amazing. Hello, Billingtano. Nice to see you. Michelle is in the house. Welcome. How are you guys doing? Let me know. How's it going up in that world? Do you ever see the sunshine? We have a lot more cloudy days than we do sunny. I'm waiting for a sunny day to put some stuff outside and let the sun kiss it and heal it. And let me maybe just check on Andy. Let's see if he's trying to message me at all. And no, I think we're good. So we can just chat for a little while, just at work listening. Very good. What else can I tell you guys about? Yeah, it's been a good summer. There's been some downtime, some creating time, and lots of inner work time. It's a really good time of year for me because it's between trainings. I don't start until September with the main work that I'm doing these days. I also still coach people one-on-one, and I'll be running courses. There's some great courses I've already ran that are there and available. But my main focus has been on training the coaches because that's where I have a lot of passion. That was born in 2020. And yeah, I got a few messages coming here, but not from anybody. I'll just let my son know I'm on an interview. And we'll text soon. There you go. Nice. So yeah, the House of Free Will has been a good experience for me. It's been very lovely and consistent, meeting weekly with people. I do a weekly video called A Snippet. Those are subjects that, if you haven't noticed, I'm not super public with my things, although I do interviews, and then there's no governor on my mouth at that time. I just did one with Tyler Bloyer, I believe is how you say his last name, on Macabre. I should know how to say that word. That was a really fun interview. I wonder if I could get a link for you guys in less than 10 minutes. And I mostly am asking people about their stories. And then I also love to tell my story. Storytelling is a wonderful way to impart things rather than just coming out and telling people stuff. It's more fun to tell stories to see if they can, in fact, relate and find themselves in your story. And no worries, Billy Tano. I'm not sitting every day going, where is he? It's not like that. I feel actually quite graced by the presence of people that do come out regularly or once in a while. It's totally fine. If anyone is interested to become a member of the House of Free Will, it is there's just a tiny little investment of, could be as little as $3 a month to be part of the private association, where I share a lot more about myself. I share a lot more about my work and pull back the curtain, go behind the scenes with the things that I'm doing. And the reason I share in private more so is because, now this is of no judgment to anybody, but people won't get it, that it is talking about the upside down world, not out there, which is so common in the truth world, but the upside down world in here. There's a lot of upside down. It's mostly upside down because we are incredibly programmed. And so, Michelle, you said you did an archetype test and laughed when it came up. The huntress. Interesting. You do enjoy hunting, but for you, it's more like bird watching and hunting for their distinct songs. Yep. Yeah, fascinating. Not sure where I would put huntress. The King Hero's Journey podcast was born on the renaissance of my feminist awakening and recovery. And so when I created the King Hero archetype quiz, for example, I did try to put a feminist archetype in place of the king. So it wasn't the queen, but I don't like the queen, and the word queen has been unfortunately pretty weaponized and bastardized. But I was trying to feminize it. I was still on that precipice. And when I really got to that full awakening of the fact that men are not responsible for everything wrong on earth, then I knew that archetype was not in fact feminine. That was a psyop, that it was the king, and it became the King Hero. Hello, Patricia Burlow. Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. And we're on my second YouTube channel. It does help. I don't even often remember or think to say this, but it does help if you like and comment on the video, even share it out. This is my humble re-beginnings on YouTube, and we still talk in code around here just to practice some good hygiene and keep the ball rolling. So yeah, what do you guys want to talk about? I hope Andy's not having trouble with the link. Maybe I'll ask. Are you having trouble with the link? He knows to text me as well. And there we go. Sorry for that interruption. My son's trying to borrow the truck. I now have an 18-year-old. It's so amazing to have been 18 years, and I'm excited actually to share about my birth story, because it was in the time when not a lot of people they didn't know even the word free birth. It didn't, there was no context necessarily for that. I just happened to have a bunch of friends in the alternative birth world who had really looked into what they call medicalized birth, or even, midwives, where the medical system just created practitioners. In the 70s, there was a renaissance of natural birth, but quickly the system engulfed it and contained it, and made it a licensed profession to be a midwife or a midwife. And boy, their hands are incredibly tied. They really don't work for their clients, the patients. They work for the system, and they work to not be liable. That's one of the very sad, unfortunate things about that profession that I would never want to be in. My friends that thought they wanted to be midwives completely steered clear of it because of all of the regulations and restrictions. I saw it firsthand. So I'm going to be telling that story. I'm not sure exactly when that interview is going to be, but yeah, it was, I knew too much about the medical system. I had already been through a great deal of medical treatments against my own planning, of course. Nobody plans to go into that. For those of you that don't know my story, I was in 1999 diagnosed with a stage 4 lymphoma, and I fought for my life for 3 years trying to get a natural cure. Now looking back, I can see that there are many reasons why I didn't actually get a cure. I did survive, but I ended up having to go through all kinds of the mainstream medical treatments, which were absolutely body and soul killing at many levels. It is a miracle that I survived, and how I survived was using my own inner work and the guidance that I found at that time through archetype work, so I could see where I was stuck, so I could find what inside my unconscious was cooperating with death instead of life. I write about that just while we've got the time. All about that in my book called Journey. It's a map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness. And the response to this book since just before the pandemic hit has been fantastic. I've been extremely fortunate to have spent a lot of time and energy preparing for this. It took me 20 years to write this book. People tell me they read it not just once or twice, sometimes more. They use it as a little bit of a textbook. They write all over it and get a lot out of it. That's the thing about archetypes, that they don't get old. And that's, for me, a very beautiful thing, because I can continue to talk and teach about archetypes without ever getting tired or bored of it. Maybe that will happen someday, but I don't think so, because they seem to have a very unlimited capacity. So thank you, Billy Tano. I'm very good. Actually, I was just looking around the legalities. You did all 3 when I got started. Nice. That's amazing. And yeah, so I was curious if it was actually illegal. There's now people are considering, oh, should I get a birth certificate for this new baby, or should I try to keep them out of the system? And there's been a lot of propaganda around staying in the private and out of the public, which is really not possible and not necessarily desirable. That it creates all kinds of trouble for that child. It doesn't mean there aren't ways around it. I'm quickly learning that there are, but it's not the most convenient thing, let's say. And we're not meant to just completely divest from the public domain, in my opinion, because it's like the masculine and feminine archetypes, which to me are identical with the public and the private. Given talks on this, and so if you divest yourself of the public, you might have immense regrets. I know somebody who did that, and that's exactly their situation. It's only the kindness of someone that would hire them without needing a social insurance number. They have no driver's license, no passport, no birth certificate, no nothing, and they are kind of a crippled crow. So to me, that's not even something that you should want these days. So hello, Brian. Nice to see you. The purpose of your life is just to live. Life is a very good purpose, especially if you know exactly what that is. And the Accidental Alchemist says, when you have a medical license, you're beholden to the system. It's true. Yeah, it's one of those things that you can't necessarily have it both ways. Although people do learn to navigate, and they learn what's expected of them. Actually, one of my coaches, a graduated coach who was also an apprentice of mine, she is a licensed psychiatrist. She continues to practice, and she's also integrated coaching practice, and sometimes coaches her patients. And she's able to maintain her license. She even speaks out. She was on this podcast speaking out against psychiatric medicine and medications. She was willing to risk it. I don't think there's been any fallout yet, or maybe at all. Maybe they're getting more used to it, that people aren't just accepting everything, and can they go after everybody? Hello, Jackie K. Nice to meet you. Well, I'm hoping that Andrew is okay. I'm not hearing from him. And let me just see. Give me 1 second. All right. Well, it might just be you and me today. You guys, anything you want to talk about? Hoping everything's all right. You know that line, and walk it carefully too. Yeah, to walk it mindfully, to understand that when you make decisions, they have certain repercussions down the line. And how can you prepare yourself for those potential repercussions, both emotionally, spiritually, but also practically? There's a lot of different, processes out there. Honestly, at the end of the day, I've come to see most of them as not bona fide. There's a lot of grifters in the space, especially where it comes to public and private. And what's the purpose? To me, that's really always the big question. That what's the purpose of your life? You can't answer that for anyone else. No one could answer it for you. And you can see how, is this your hill to die on? Is this your hero's journey? And if that's not exactly it, then how can you preserve your potential for fulfilling on your sacred purpose in your lifetime and every day? I do have a course called Find Your Sacred Purpose. It's a little tiny bit of a misnomer, because you didn't lose your sacred purpose as long as you have a living, breathing soul, and you're not, an NPC, or maybe one of those versions of Adam that doesn't know right from wrong like we do. Then you have a purpose. And that's something that you can't lose. You can't get off the hero's journey. You can always refuse your calling. But guess what? That's hardwired into the hero's journey. It's called refusal of the call, right there, nearly at the beginning. So then, if you follow that, it is like breadcrumbs, divine breadcrumbs, and it's not an ultimate answer to what am I going to do for a living, although it can have a lot to do with what you do for a living. Like, for example, I chose a helping profession. That's indicative of my nurturer archetype. I like to help people, and it's taken me my entire life to be able to do that in a way that's skillful, that doesn't drain me of my energy. It doesn't make me hate the people that I work with. I'm actually in the process of writing an email and the subject is going to be, if you see it, it'll be, I want to listen to people talk about their problems all day, said no one. And you might be familiar with that experience where you have friends or family and they use you as a sounding board, and they come and they tell you their problems and they tell you more about their problems. And they often tell you about other people's problems too, that were responsible for their problems. And that is draining. It's really, can just suck the life right out of you. And doubly so if you have a helping nurturer spirit, because you don't want to just sit back and let people suffer. That's part of your sacred contract, that you contribute and you do serve. So if they're really locked into that need to tell problems, then they will be not wanting to hear from you. They don't want answers. They don't want solutions. They don't want advice. They just want to be able to share their burden. And there's, a certain goodness in that. There are people in your life, that are close to you, like only friends. There's no agreement whatsoever that you're a helper to them. And if someone wants to just tell you that they're suffering, then that can be a good thing to, and I'll do that with friends as well. I had an experience recently. Maybe I'll just tell you this really funny but gory story. I was walking in the park one day, and let's get myself off topic here. And I was on a call with somebody. So I had my headset on, and you know how squirrels run? Have you ever seen this on the street? We had a lot of squirrels here. We seem to have more than ever for some reason, and deer too. So many baby deer around. But the squirrels can be like little, they got a screw loose. So they come running out high speed in front of a car, and then they go like, oh my God, a car. And then they go running back high speed. And somewhere along the line, they lose their sense of direction. This can happen to underwater aquatic animals as well, like loons, unfortunately. And they panic and they come running right in front of the car again, even though they missed it the first time, but the second time they get schmucked. Well, this is, and please don't judge me. There was one friend I couldn't tell, because right away I could tell she was going to judge me. But so I'm walking along and suddenly this wasn't a squirrel, it was a chipmunk. We even really don't have that many here, but suddenly there are, and at least suddenly to my awareness. And so the chipmunk comes running out high speed and sees me and goes blah, and goes running back, and did the bounce back, comes running right under my heel. Right? What are the chances of that happening? Extremely low. And I crushed the poor guy. It was terrible. I felt absolutely. Yeah, they always come back. It's some kind of screw loose going on there. And so I was a killer that day. It felt really, really bad and terrible. And so we don't want to kill squirrels, and we don't want to see people suffer if you got that helping spirit. And you also don't want to listen to people's problems all day long. So what is an alternative? An alternative is to become skilled at helping those who actually want help. That's a very big key. If people don't want help, it doesn't matter how good a helper you are. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. It doesn't matter what great questions you've learned to ask. If they don't want that, then you can't go against their free will. That's why I named my association the House of Free Will, because this is a law. You cannot break it. Or if you break it, I think there's a very high cost energetically for that. And then so that's the beauty of a coaching profession, that people actually hire you. They invest in that. They want that from you. And they've made some kind of internal decision that they're willing to make changes or do whatever it takes to get to that place. And wow, I'm a little bit mystified here. I hope Andy's okay. I'll just reshare a link. Sorry for the distraction. No. I hope everything is okay. All right, just did that while I had the thought. And yeah, they must want the help. So then it gets you off the hook. If they're coming to you, they already know they want the help. Then it's not going to be just like your cousin or your friend that tells you their problems. And Mirrors are very revealing. That is one of the roles of a coach, to mirror back. And how you do that is not by putting on your mirror or finding, oh, how can I reflect to them, and this kind of thing. It's actually by you being the clean mirror, right? So that's why one of the main principles that I teach about coaching is to do your own work. And that's what gives you credibility. It's what gives you the opportunity to just be the vessel that does reflect. It just reflects. There's no decision on your part. It's not a premeditated thing. It's like, I need to show them themselves. And it's like, no, you want to, in fact, take all of your need and your desire out of the picture entirely, because that is when you become a much more clean mirror for others, which is a beautiful thing. And so in particular, like, so say it, so far everything I've talked about is the same with a therapist. You would hire them and you would go to them, and you might have decided, like, yeah, I have a problem, I really need help. Now, the difference between the style of coaching that I teach and train in and practice compared to a therapist is that there might be a little bit of them sharing the problem with you, of course, right? It's not, I don't censor anyone or tell them, like, don't tell me anything. There might be, a little bit of the story, a little bit of the detail, a little bit of the history, a little bit of maybe what they're anticipating in the future. But the whole purpose of the coaching is to help them to find the inner unconscious roots that keep them stuck, that make them act out of their own best interest, which sounds weird, right? We're used to seeing other people that are trying to thwart us, and they're the ones that are not acting in our best interest, which is often true as well. But we don't see the degree to which we are also acting. We might see that we're acting out of our own best interest, but we don't see the root cause of that. And this is a beautiful ongoing theme in whatever arena that you're in, health or personal development. If you can get to the root cause, then you can have a much more productive use of time and energy and investment. And once you see the root cause, then you see how upside down that root and that cause is. It's no cause at all, and it's not full of purpose, and it's not full of life, and it's not full of meaning, and all of those things that help us to get out of bed every day and do the thing and be on our hero's journey. And so in this case, it's very, very quick where someone is able to go very quickly into the deprogramming work, so that it's not just recycling the story over and over and over again, but they get to take the roots out, right? If you go and you dig a garden and you've probably seen many gardens that get tilled, and in about 5 minutes, what happens? The weeds pop up again. In fact, you make them more virulent, or more like, you make them stronger by cutting them up. In particular, the grass here on the prairies. So you cut it up, and it's just like, woo, let's go. I have renewed life, a new reason to live, because someone's trying to kill me but was not successful in getting the roots. So anyway, that's all of that. And hello, Dagmar. So nice to see you. Got your message today. The helping only those who want it is something you can never hear enough of. Exactly. It's otherwise you're wasting your time, and you're wasting their time, and they're probably not going to like you sooner or later, or maybe even sooner. It's not a way to have good relationships, or have a trusted building rapport over time. Yeah, I know it well, because I've made all the mistakes. That's how I came into this role, because I did everything wrong. And I was gifted with when you do your own work, you become a safe mirror. Yeah, I'm really allergic to that word safe now. They weaponize that one. Oof. And safety is actually a subject of one of the main root programs that we feel to be unsafe. And we desire safety, and we want safety, and we chase that like our life is at stake, which is what the program tells you is happening. Lots of people feel like they have absolutely no fear of dying, but when you get into this work and you decide to go deep and you want freedom more than anything, you're going to see how much death is your governor, actually. we listen to it unconsciously. We don't know we're listening to it. And then it rules us from the underground. So yes, doing your own work helps you become a good mirror, I would say. Safe. There's a lot of people around safety. There's some of the traditions of, I was just hearing this about somatics, and they talk about, oh, we need to teach people that it's safe to be in their body. And there's a certain truth in that. It's interesting when you just think about it logically, how you could be even unsafe in your own body. It doesn't make sense, but it's because of the programming that it feels unsafe, right? And this is very humbling work. I do it constantly in order to maintain my own credibility, also to have breakthroughs and to solve problems. I've been through things that are so monumental to my own inner life where I did feel very unsafe. And in a very short time, I was able to have a lot of breakthroughs and go into an absolutely brand new place, be able to create anew with a different outlook. And sometimes even in the midst of crisis, where there's a lot of wrong things going on, a lot of unknowns, no guarantee of safety whatsoever, which is the hero's journey, right? It's the hero's journey. Everybody dies on it. Every single person dies on their hero's journey. So it's not really the safe path. If you want to stay on the safe path, you stay in the child, you stay in a state of nescience and so-called innocence. That's really ignorance, in denial, in hiding under the covers, in playing out your fear of the hero's journey in your personal relationships, especially romance. And it doesn't go well. So that's, but you're still on that hero's journey. You're still being called. The child is being called, and often completely void of any sense that they know what they're being called for, right? They just know they're being called. They know they can't sleep at night, that there's something pushing up. And that's the story of my whole entire life. Something has always been pushing up, compelling me, taking me forward into my next steps, even when I don't really know what they are. Hello, Polly Vegas. Nice to see you. It was morning and now it's afternoon. Very good. All right. Well, say a prayer for Andrew. I am hoping nothing too wrong happened. And he's not seen my last messages. So anything else you guys want to talk about? Throw me a topic. I don't mind staying on for a little while. And what else could I talk about? I could talk about the rebel archetype. That one's very popular in our world. And it's been really fun, actually, to have written this book pre-pandemic, because I thought, oh man, this is going to end up outdated. And there was so much learning that happened after that pandemic, lots of rabbit holes and research, a lot of it, honestly, a wasted time. But we were, as say, more of the resistance, more of the rebels. We're looking at all the people who just, without even asking, they covered their faces, and without even asking, they jabbed stuff in their bodies, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe multiple times. And there was a lot of abuse of them and a lot of bad words. We invented words to describe them, and we kind of hated them. And, I was on that bandwagon for a while. I went through a lot of anger. First it's like the sorrow, and then it's the anger. And it's actually a very stuck place. It's why I really committed to helping the the truth and freedom movement, for lack of a better way to say that, because whatever that is, right, it's very, very difficult to define, but we kind of know there's some key characteristics. But I didn't know at that time that our controllers were just as prepared for us as they were for normal people, and now I would hazard a guess to say even more prepared. And because why? We're harder to hold down, right? We have more predator energy, like I think Michelle was talking about before. And you can't just go like this to a predator and tell them to get away. Like do this to a wolf and they're gonna eat your face anyway, right? So you need much greater measures, and you need bigger tools, and you need much bigger propaganda machines, and you need many channels and many flavors. I don't post it anymore, but I do have an entire training on the archetypes of controlled op. And that's something that is very valuable to learn the patterns and the signs of controlled op, because many good people got taken absolutely sideways, maybe forever, into those controlled opposition channels where their energy and their time and often their money are also drained completely, or, like siphoned off. And yeah, so it's really important to have your wits about you. And where was I going with that? Accidental chemist. I love your name, by the way. It's a safe mirror for others because their effery won't trigger you to react. Right. Fascinating discussion. Fascinating subject around reactions. I literally am of two minds about this. That I'm aware of the aspect of myself that doesn't have any, like I was saying, you can be in the midst of chaos and things going sideways and being unknown, and you don't know if they're going to work out, but you can actually be entirely free in the face of that. Not just peaceful, but free. And when you make freedom the goal, then it's pretty powerful. There's incredible resource there in freedom itself. Hello, Tammy Thomas. I was going to call you Tammy Truther. Nice to see you. And then there's also the expression, which I often quote from somebody I studied with in India, who I could never recommend, and he didn't turn into a good guy in the end at all. But he said something wise that I still very much, like I said, quote, and it's, when it rains, get wet, right? Because what's the alternative is pretending that you're not wet, and everybody can see you're wet, but I'm not wet, like this. And what is that really? What's the math on that is suppression. If you pretend or deny that you're wet or triggered or anything like that, then what you've had to do in order to get there would be to suppress, right? So the triggers can be there. That activates your system in a certain way, brings up certain emotions, and makes you feel a certain way, makes you think in certain patterns and maybe loops and stations. And that's all, you can deny it, but it's all there for your seeing, at least. Now, the thing is that you have power over that. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They have power over their triggers, not to suppress it as the most common knee-jerk kind of reaction, because we want to suppress pain, maybe rise above or whatever it is, but to release it, right? To deprogram it, to actually let trapped energy and programs go so that they don't rule you. So you got triggered, you let it go, and then, are you going to stay around that person who's a trigger to you? Is there any benefit for them or for you, especially for them, or not? And then you can decide where to put your body, in the rain or not in the rain, because that's a good way to stay dry as well. And so they were prepared for us rebels in a huge way. There's just endless amounts of content for us, and so you have to go deep and find the truth in inside yourself, which is a cliche for a reason. And let's see, Michelle said, you learn how to age progress each archetype through the wisdom gained in seeking the strengths and weaknesses. How to gauge progress? Probably gauge progress. And so there is a progression in life. There's many, many progressions. I know two of them very well: the progression of the stages of the hero's journey and the scale of emotion also. And there is progress, right? So say if I use the archetypes as an example first, The child is a very vulnerable place. The rebel is a very fighty place, can be a lot of wasted energy and a lot of conflict and a lot of trouble. And the warrior is can feel like a better place than the child and the rebel, because you can gain some strength and go the distance and do hard things. And then, the nurturer is the next step, which seems better than always being on the battlefield with the warrior. And then the next stage is the lover, which seems better than the nurturer, where you get trapped in all kinds of boundary issues trying to help people that don't want to be helped. And the lover gains much greater peace and communion with God and creating what's really in your soul to do. And then the hedonist can feel even better than the lover, because that's where you inherit the earth and the pleasures of life. And the king can seem like a really even better place than the hedonist, because they have all the power, they have all the control, they get to create what they want, they have the ability to manifest bigger visions on their own behalf, but very much on behalf of others. And then the alchemist can seem like a better place than the king, because the alchemist is extremely wise about power and sees the source of power and is willing to do the deep inner healing work to serve their people and their kingdom. And the alchemist can seem a lot better than the next archetype on that spiral, which is going to be the child again, right? So that's how all of those inner maps work. They spiral up, they spiral down, and in reality, to me, they are a map, and the whole purpose of the map is to get off the map into freedom, where you already are, right? We don't create that. We don't really find that, although it seems like a good game of lost and found. And so then, where was I going with that? I don't remember. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to pretend I'm disappointed not to talk to Andy. I was looking forward to connecting with him today. Sometimes that's the only way that I see my friends, is by interviewing them. And so I apologize, but yeah, I did everything that I could do. Hello, Ron Welser. Nice to see you. And we are the much bigger threat. Exactly, Dagmar. Yeah, we think critically. We tend to learn. We are not afraid of disapproval. And that is a major superpower in life, when you can just step out and boldly go in a direction that you feel to be real and true, and say the real and true things for you, even though you know someone's not going to like it, and someone always doesn't like it. They always don't, because then that's what happens when you get that disapproval. Many people, like someone in the child, would just shrink away and shy away, and they get a little beating, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll go back in my quiet place, and I won't say anything because so and so doesn't like it, or that kind of thing. But the rebels have got past that stage and have the inner strength to lick their wounds. And it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. I think there was a time of my life where I was very good at suppressing, and I appeared to be unaffected, and I could take a lot of abuse, or I could take a lot of hits from people. And when they think you can take a lot of hits, they tend to give you a lot of hits. So that was a good way to wake me up to that fact, and actually suppress less and show more, and be more, I very rarely use this word, but be more vulnerable with people, and not, put on the strong, I didn't even know I was putting on that strong persona, but sometimes strong people really get the worst attacks, because they, I don't know why. Why do you guys think? Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that. And some power there. Let's see what Bellitano said. That that's how you felt when you were stuck on I-40 last fall. I knew we were in danger, but I was focused on freeing us from that highway so we could get to a safer spot. It was freeing to not fear. Good. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'll tell a cautionary tale about that too. One time I was driving on the highway. It was October and it looked like summer when I left. And when I was driving back from Minneapolis, all of a sudden it turned to winter. Massive snowstorm, huge gobs and gobs of snow came down, ruined the highways. And so at that time, I really hadn't learned to release. That was pre getting diagnosed with cancer. That's when I was much more an expert at suppressing. And so I started at the time. I had traveled to India 8 times. I was a big fan of mantra. I like to sing mantra. I thought mantra was the cure of everything, that was so powerful. And it's like, yes, very powerful suppressant, very powerful way to numb your mind out. So I started to do this mantra, life affirming mantras. I'm immortal. I'm blissful. And this is how I'm like, instead of being afraid, I'm numbing the fear and the pain of that. And the fear would have had me do something else. If I had listened to it at the time, I would have pulled off the highway and gotten some kind of accommodation for the night. Or I saw lots of people had done that along the way. And then next thing you know, we're down to 3 cars on the highway, at least where I was. And I'm just trying to, stay behind 2 other cars. And then I'm getting farther and farther away, and it's harder to see them. And I'm trying to keep up my speed. And next thing you know, I start to spin out and fishtail and back and forth. And then around she goes once or once and a half. And there I am, completely stranded in a snowbank on the highway in the middle of the night. And it was just like, oh my God, I don't even have a winter coat. I don't have a shovel. I don't have anything. It was summer to me because I'm young and stupid. And I'm in a rental car. And so my intelligence told me just like, get out of the car and start waving. And there turned out to be a semi-truck coming not too far. And he saw me. And it was, I think, less than a minute that I was outside in that snowstorm. He picked me up and he brought me right into Winnipeg, very safe. Like God just said, oh, Beth needs an angel because she's so dumb. And he sent me one. And that was a lesson learned, I tell you. So yeah, don't suppress fear, release fear. It's a very, very big difference. And this is what I teach in my work in the back end. So let me see what I've missed now. Yeah, the more you can take, the more they'll give you. Yep, that's really a great habit to break, to be that person that can take a lot. That sucks entirely. Ron, you said, I have a coworker that doesn't like that. I don't pay income taxes and I don't pay union dues. Right. Well, they don't like that. Yeah, I was just, in fact, talking about this, say, somebody that would birth a baby right now, and I have no judgment whatsoever, but I'm really looking at what are the repercussions? Is it illegal? And it's not technically illegal in Canada. They say that it's illegal in the States, but when you look in deeper, you see that in some cases it's very much up to the individual state. And there's no, like, it's not really true that it's illegal, but what can happen is somebody calls you out and they get afraid for that child and they decide that you're abusing that child by not registering them in the system and giving them access to healthcare and education and all of the, benefits, which can be benefits. And then so if you get called out, they actually can charge you based on not registering, a criminal violation based on not registering a child. And one of the reasons is because there is great abuse of having babies off the record and using those babies for terrible, terrible things. So there's actually some sense in it. The law is often like that. People don't want to hear this, but the law is not there just to crush you. It is there to protect people and to allow them to live in groups greater than 140 or 200 people to, basically everybody's benefit, although, much corruption and a lot of abuse and everything has been in there as well. And yeah, now I have survival gear in my vehicles all year round. It doesn't matter what the weather is. That taught me a lesson. Absolutely. Yep. And hello, Artiseer. Nice to see you here. What else should we talk about? Anything? coming up on almost an hour. This was actually the amount of time that Andy had put aside for the interview. So let's all say a prayer for him, that he's okay, that nothing bad and wrong has happened. And that would be good. Maybe I'll have another chance to have him on. And I will keep you posted as usual. Let's see, what do we have coming up? It's not scheduled yet, but in the House of Free Will, Dagmar is here. She's going to be doing a workshop on writing, which is pretty fantastic. I don't know if you have an inner writer that you're trying to cultivate, or you're already a writer and you want to gain more skills and practice. Writing is, 90% doing it. Would you agree, Dagmar, that if you write and write, writing will teach you, reading will teach you? But also I know she's got a beautiful creative background. And so we don't have a date for that yet, but that will be coming up in the House of Free Will. And am I coming to Esoterica in South Carolina? Oh, is that Camino Del, by the way? That sounds like it might be the right location or something else. I heard just out of the corner of one of my ears, but let me know more details about it. Feel free to share them here if anyone wants. So that's coming up. And then on the King Heroes Journey, we also have coming up in August, Lindsay Sharman of Rogue Ways is coming on for an interview. And Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos, I don't know his last name, something, are from Here for the Truth, are going to be on in August as well. And I think those are the interviews that I have set up. And yeah, writing is a sneaky way to reveal ourselves, right? Like all the art is. And this was something that you were telling me on the phone the other day, Dagmar, or at least that I was concluding, and something I've thought about a lot, that, what's the difference between this, maybe the artist archetype, and everybody who is creative, right? Like we're all creative beings. That's part of having been created by a creator, is we're creative. And so we can all create. And then there are the creations, and this is actually very much the lover archetype in my system as well. There are the creations that are just for you, and there are the creations that you dare to bring out to other people, because what happens in the creative process is you reveal yourself to yourself. And then if you have enormous courage and generosity of spirit and the desire for others to gain the the lesson or the freedom or whatever it is that you were able to show to yourself, then you're going to show it to others and give them a chance at a similar revelation, or their own. It's probably going to be their own revelation, and show it to people. And that's different. That's really different, because you can create all day long in your living room or your bedroom in your privacy, and nobody ever sees it, and they don't have to worry about it, and you might have fun, and it's a little bit more childlike. That's okay. It's not bad to be a child, so we all have that. But taking it next level is going to be very challenging, because you're going to they're going to see me, and they're going to know me, and they're going to know, some inner workings of me. And this is everybody's biggest fear. And it's a two-sided fear. It's the fear of being seen, and it's also the fear of not being seen. Both of those are equally formidable. Sometimes people have one stronger, and other people have them less strong. And maybe you've practiced a lot being seen and allowing yourself to be seen and being more authentic and transparent. That's what I'm going to be talking to Joel and Yerasimos about on August 11th, is authenticity. So not everybody has that. Why? Because our authentic selves weren't really relished and appreciated. And, nobody wanted that from us, because why? We often pointed out some truth or something that didn't work. I was interviewing Robin Stebbins, and, from an early age in the church and in, I guess, Sunday school, if I'm remembering correctly, she would point out how certain things just don't make sense. And then she made made a picture that put the Easter bunny on the cross, and then they X'd her, and like they didn't like that, being creative with things or asking questions about things that didn't make sense. And so you when you put yourself out there and you show your work and you let other people see it, they're going to judge it. They're going to, right? It's just part of it. And there will be some people who love it and will really lean into you because of it. And there will be some people who hate it, and they will, in fact, be repelled by it and by you and stay away. And that takes a strong nervous system, and it takes a great deal of inner knowing of your own self, and knowing like what is the authority of your own expression is not people's opinions and whether they like it or don't like it. It is actually, you could call it the creator, the divine, the true. If there's a judge, then we're not supposed to judge, but if there's a judge of any kind, then that could be it. And so then that ends up being, and the tendency to get stuck in all kinds of perfectionism, which is a program. It tells you if you don't get it perfect, you're going to die, or can also be the inverted version. If you do get it perfect, you're going to die. It's why some people refuse to get anything right at all, because it seems like an inner danger to them. And the healing is in the revealing, and there's so much beauty. Yeah, exactly. That's so perfectly said. The healing is in the revealing, and to a degree, because sometimes you can see something, it's revealed, but you're clinging for your dear life. You're holding on. And that can be sheer habit, but that's because the programming instructs you that you're going to die without it. That's why. So you can have the revelation of it that will bring greater pain, because there's nothing more painful than the revealed program, which is often a good enough impetus to see, like, is that painful, awful thing really you, authentically you, or is it an automation that you're running without really knowing it, and not in your best interest? So it's the revealing is definitely part of that healing. Absolutely. Seeing is good. I like seeing. Oh yeah, and Cami and Commercial Sound and Video and Karen are working to put it together. That's amazing. Right on. I should definitely look into it. We'll see. I might end up going to Kelowna for Curtis Stone's workshop in October, so I'll have to see where I'm at with that. And yeah, Cami's one of the organizers. She did a great interview. I didn't even catch the entire thing, but with Topher Gardner, that was really fun to watch them geek out. I like that a lot. And Dagmar is saying the creative process teaches us generosity. Exactly. It's an offering. And even if it's not the very best offering or the perfect offering or the, ultimately finished offering, it's in fact better to offer before things are finished, so that people can be part of your creation and give you feedback and be part of this, because creating is exciting, and even if it's somebody else's creation, we love being part of that. So it is absolutely an act of generosity, like serving a great meal. Nice. I think Dagmar and I are going to get together. I can feel that. I can feel that happening. And thanks for that link. If anybody would like to look up Esoterica, Billingtano has shared a live link in the chat here. So very good. Well, I wonder if it's safe to say that Andy is not going to be making it. I will just quickly check my email and see if there's anything that I'm missing here. And there's nothing. Darn. I will check the spam even, which I doubt, because I've been in contact. I guess I could send a message to Macy. Yeah, so give me a second here and I'll just quickly see if there's any point to wait. Otherwise, shoot me another topic. I can talk about nearly anything, or I'll certainly let you know if I can't. It's fun to be on here. I don't do many solo streams, so it tricked me into doing one of those. There it is. say hello all. I hope Andrew is okay. Is he planning to come on the interview? I'm still live. Let me know if you can. There we go. And I'm a born connector. My mind will keep presenting opportunities and ways to, if there one road doesn't work, I know my brain will suggest a different road to go. And Dagmar says, all our inner antagonists, like the critic or perfectionist, can be diving boards for deepening our voice. Yeah. It's fun. We were talking about the possibility. I don't know if this would happen, but if you guys have ever done any improv, and in my training as a deprogramming coach, we actually did improv, which was fascinating, like incredibly fascinating to see how, there are parts of yourself that you don't know are there until you're given the opportunity. And I think we're all familiar with different experiments where, you give people a badge and a gun and all of a sudden they're that kind of person. Well, it's not because that was created new. That's because there were seeds of that inside themselves and they had something of that capacity. And you saw parts of yourself you didn't know were there. And it's very beautiful because why? It's fun. And Dagmar and I were also talking about how the most powerful creations of all are improvisation, where you don't know what you're going to create. Because why? Then it comes from the deep. It comes from something that you're not aware of. You'll get access to something inside yourself that you hadn't seen. And there's a spontaneity about that. There's excitement in that. There's newness and freshness. And then there's the learning, like, oh, that's inside of me. Fancy that. And in the spirit of play. Exactly. Yeah. So it's a way to really use that child archetype, beautiful, buoyant energy that hasn't developed a whole lot of care for why that's, silly or stupid or pointless or any of that kind of stuff. They don't feel that. And hopefully they don't have adults in their life trying to make them feel that would be good. And play is good. We definitely miss that as adults. Life can become incredibly serious, and life is serious. Let's get real here. My son's just on that precipice, and oh my goodness, looks like Andy's going to make it. That's amazing. And so you can give me a thumbs up when you're ready, Andy. And he's ready. Okay, incredible. Look, we get to talk with him after all. Hello, Andy. Welcome.
Hi, Beth. Of course I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. Did we get our times mixed up? Maybe.
What do you mean? It's not at 3 o'clock?
It was an hour. It was an hour ago. I was just contemplating going off, so you can cancel that email I just sent, by the way, to
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, my calendar says 3. So there must have been a mix-up with the time zone or something.
Okay, my apologies if that was on my side. But yay, you're here. I'm so glad. I've had a really good time talking with people, and I bet they're happy to see you as well. Everybody is excited. Yay. Right on. So how are you?
I'm doing great. I just got back from a 1-week vacation, so I'm well rested.
That's awesome. Nice. Where do you vacation since it's nice in the U.S.?
Well, this time I was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Fantastic.
Staying right near the beach.
Right. Oh, good. It's like Christmas now. I'm so excited. This is awesome. I just heard there's a, what is it called? Esoterica festival going on in South Carolina as well, coming up. Someone mentioned.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I bet people know you, but I'm gonna say a little bit, unless you prefer. Do you want to say who you are first for anyone that might not know, or do you want me to just read your bio?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, for sure. So Dr. Andy Kaufman is a recovering physician who's transitioned from a prestigious mainstream medical career to challenge conventional paradigms. Trained in allopathic medicine, his journey of questioning traditional principles led him to become a dynamic educator and speaker, Dr. Andy shares insights on medicine, viruses, and natural healing while exploring interconnected fields like economics, law, and science, offering a holistic perspective that inspires critical thinking. With a Bachelor of Science in Biology from MIT, an MD from the University of South Carolina, and a psychiatric residency at Duke University, Dr. Andy has held academic leadership roles, contributed to research, and patented a medical device. Now he dedicates himself to researching and delivering trustworthy products and protocols, empowering health seekers to achieve optimal wellness. And you can follow him on Medicum Authentica, which is on YouTube, Instagram, and Rumble to gain knowledge and take charge of your health journey. You can find his website, andrewkaufmanmd.com, on the net. So fantastic. I'm so glad you made it. And I understand you have an hour, correct? So if we work in that time, it's better.
Yes. I'm good for an hour. And that I couldn't have said that better myself, except for my channels, just Dr. Andrew Kaufman on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay.
Everything else you could think of.
Okay. I'm going to put that in the chat here. So people could, oops, shoot, that was bad. Delete that. Here we go. All right. So one of the main things that I wanted to, actually, could somebody else post that so I can focus a little bit right now? Yeah, you knew it was a time mix up. There you go. Yeah, time zones. It's amazing we get it right at all. So we're going to talk a lot about today that transition where, some of us had more medical indoctrination or mainstream indoctrination in the world. I was brought up in a world that was full of medical professionals. They believed in it 100% the entire time. I was the only one who started to question it as I came of age, and I saw things that weren't making sense and were, in fact, very frightening about that other part of the world. So I'm curious if you would be able to start with, how did that transition for you take place? Where did you start to realize what was, things weren't either right, or it wasn't enough, or it was outright wrong?
Yeah, well, let me start off by saying also I was, a real believer in the allopathic medical system. I mean, since I was a young child, I was fascinated with medicine. I used to go into the doctor's office and he would bring me into his office and discuss things and lend me books because I had a million questions. And I think he was, kind of thrilled that someone was interested in that level. And that continued all the way through my education and including my career before going to medical school, where I did public health research. I worked in the biotech and pharmaceutical industry doing research, and eventually, medical school and beyond. And it was really through my clinical experience that I started to notice just a pattern that the patients weren't getting better. And many times they were experiencing health problems as a direct result of the treatments in addition. And this led me to be more and more conservative in my medical practice in terms of, prescribing and such. When I decided to specialize in psychiatry, I knew that I wanted to focus on talk therapy because a lot of psychiatrists don't even get any training in that. And it was important to me because I knew that you could help someone undergo a process of change and transformation, and also the harm from that is minimal. So, I had that even during my training, but when I was practicing psychiatry, I just saw over and over again that no one was getting better from the standard treatments. And eventually I was, suggested to me to look at Kelly Brogan's book, A Mind of Your Own, which was really about psychiatry specifically, but also in my educational training, especially at Duke University, we were taught to and expected to do this on a regular basis, to scrutinize research papers. And every time we had those meetings, we were basically saying these studies are invalid. And they were, like treatment studies for antidepressants or anxiety drugs, antipsychotics. And it was so strange that we would have this meeting where we would all agree that the studies didn't show benefit, but then we would an hour later be in the clinics and be told to prescribe those same treatments. So over time, that kind of position just became more and more untenable. And when I started experimenting, on my own and with people that I knew in, professional relationships, not on my patients, with natural healing approaches, people had a dramatic improvements or even, went into complete remission from things like anxiety, which I never witnessed that in a psychiatric setting, but with simply doing an elimination diet, for example, or some coffee enemas, it could completely go away. So, the pandemic really pulled me, through the complete transition where I could no longer look back and be part of that system in any way.
Right. And I remember that. In fact, I talked to you that exact day. I think I've said this before in a podcast that you lost your job. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I was actually I was a contract provider. So my contract was actually illegally terminated, but this happened because I was told that I needed to start wearing a mask to interact with my patients. And these were teenagers who were traumatized. They had issues with, behavior like violence or breaking the law. And they would open up to me about what was going on with them. And, I knew, aside from just my criticism of the pandemic in general and that it was based on, false claims, I couldn't really connect with a kid or, I could be laughing underneath the mask and making fun of them and they wouldn't even know it. You need to make that connection. We read emotions through facial expressions, that nonverbal communication. And, this is something that's well studied, and even children learn about reading emotions as they grow up, and it helps them put the language in context and such. So I simply said, one, it's not your job to tell me how to administer psychiatric care because that's up to me and my contract. But two, I'm just not going to wear a mask on principle because there's no reason. And what they did is that they ganged up on me. The management of the facility brought me into their office, and they were all, I had never seen one of them wearing a mask. The policy was only with interacting with the kids there. But they all put on masks, like four, the senior management in there, trying to kind of bully me into putting one on. And I simply asked them, what was the legal justification? I tried to explain to them that if there was any liability for not doing it, that it was on me, which was the truth. But then they made me wait around the whole day without doing any work. And at the end of the day, they told me they were terminating me. So, this was sudden development. And of course, I'm raising a family and had a mortgage and all those things. So it put me in a real bind. It was very fortunate that I was able to establish a consultation service virtually overnight. I had a good friend who helped set up a website, and people signed up right away. So I was able to, just make a complete transition. And in just a couple of weeks, it was really a miracle, in my opinion.
That is a miracle. How were you able to navigate with your license and everything? Did they not start to come after you, or are you much more protected in a private practice?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Well, no. So one thing is that my consultation service is not a medical practice. It's totally different. And so I had to be very clear with my contract. If you're going to work with me as a client, you have to agree to the terms of the contract, which, explicitly state these things, because I don't do any of the elements that would consider it a doctor-patient encounter. There's no test, there's no physical exam, there's no diagnosis, there's no treatment plan, none of those things that would constitute medical service. But I also needed to get out of my license contract because that, obligates me to provide the standard of care to people. And it could certainly been misconstrued. What I was doing was, something like medicine. So I simply waited because it was only a few months away until my license expired, and I didn't renew it. So now I'm not obligated under that contract anymore. And whatever I'm doing now, it's really an educational service, because I don't tell anyone what to do. I help them figure out what to do. And I teach them about various ways to do that. And then, they take action. So that's the model that I've, cultivated in terms of that small part. But really what I mostly do now is provide education on a larger scale to groups of people, mostly through virtual webinars, but also in person and through courses, and such like that. And because I want everybody to know, that there are ways out there that are compatible with the way our body works to help our body heal from these things that we can do almost always somewhat on our own. Like we may not even need a consultation or anything like that. And so, but just to know that there's an alternative and the alternative works extremely well is kind of my mission to get out there.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's more like coaching in a way, right? That you're not just sitting there and going, "Oh, you have this disease, therefore you should do these medications or treatments or anything like that." And it's getting people to learn. That's something that, like Amanda Vollmer, is just so hardcore on. I think any practitioner that has spent time in the giving advice and protocols or whatever, that I think the evolution would happen. You would have to come to that place where or even let's pass it on to you. Why do you think that's a more powerful way to help someone?
Well, if we make an analogy here and look at the legal theory for mandatory psychiatric treatment, for example, because like civil commitment or, assisted outpatient treatment, these kind of things where they force people either, to go into a hospital or to take medications. It's based on the legal theory originally of parens patriae and later police powers. Okay, so that's why like the modern standard is about dangerousness, because that's the police powers. And originally, though, it was the state is the father or the parent of the individual receiving care. And both of those philosophies are extremely problematic, because if the state is your parent, that means you're a child. So you're being treated like a child. And if it's police powers, it means you're bad and you need to be put in your place. And neither of those empower us to connect with nature and allow the natural healing process that our bodies are capable of to come to the surface. So, I know most people think about like, drugs and surgery and things like that as, actually being the active thing that does something to the body to fix it. But the truth is, really, it's only our bodies and, our spirit and mind being part of that. I'm talking about the tripartite aspect of the self, which can take any action to bring about healing. So when we, put a drug in our body, for example, and this would also include if we put a natural substance in our body, whether it's food or not, the body has a response to that. And the response to that could be a positive response, like it would, improve the body's functions or encourage the body to heal, or things like that, or give us more ability to, have strength and endurance, whatever our goals are. But it's not that substance or food that's doing that. It's our body doing it. And we need to be empowered to know that we are the only agents of our healing. And it's got to come from us. Even if we get outside help, that help is only stimulating our body to do the healing.
Right. Sometimes I say the words grace of God, because I can, draw a map in retrospect of ways that I've healed and overcome certain things. But if you discount everything that you're saying that I've just called this, the grace and the willingness for the human form to heal, right? It wants to heal. You can see so many walking dead right now also. And the tenacity of life is absolutely incredible. The being's ability to die slow instead of die fast and preserve life at all costs sometimes is absolutely remarkable.
I agree. And, you could definitely, and I often do look at this in a spiritual way, because there is a purpose for us being here, and leaving this realm prematurely is going to perhaps prevent us from fulfilling that purpose, or, and that we may, and I think, when you describe people walking around like that, it makes me, and I often observe this, like they don't have meaning in their life. Like it's lacking. It used to be part of our culture, right? I mean, when we were dominated by Christianity, for example, in Western nations, that framework, again, you can agree with it or not, right? Because there's dogmatic aspects to it. However, it provided clear meaning in life, right? That we are to serve God, that we have to display moral behavior, take care of our children, and, all these things, right? In order to get to heaven. And so that meaning helps with the context in day-to-day life, and gives you hope and inspiration throughout. And in the modern, materialist era, where the culture of materialism has been thrust upon us, through the control of information in our society, including compulsory schooling and many, many other institutions, that spiritual framework of meaning is gone. And now it's up to us as individuals to create that for ourselves. And many people have just been lost, by maybe technocratic influences, if you will.
Yeah, meaninglessness is the biggest enemy of all. If people have no purpose, then yeah, this is the drum I bang. Absolutely agree with that. And the beauty is that life has a lot of inherent meaning, and it has to be beaten out of us. So it's there. You don't have to worry like, oh, I have to go seek the meaning of life. It's no, you already have it. It's just to know yourself enough.
When you, Beth, when you read about, and I've done a lot of research about this to look into longevity and health, because if you look at many hunter-gatherer societies, including Native Americans, and there are many different, of course, civilizations among Native Americans. It's not like one uniform thing. You find one thing is you find amazing health, right? That most of modern disease just was simply not existent at all. And that's quite extensive. But universally, there is a strong spiritual, moral, cultural framework that provides that meaning and context from which to derive, your function in the group, your relationships, and all the things that guide you through life in a productive and loving way. And it's even the anthropologists that studied those cultures, from the colonial nations, they took note of that, right? And the importance of it. And certainly the leadership of those tribes discussed it at length. And we just don't have that within our current cultural experience.
Yeah, and what we do have is, excuse my language, fake and gay.
Well, yeah, we have consumerism. We have all kinds of, agendas to almost change the nature of things, right? Like change the nature of gender, change the nature of marriage and family, change the nature of education, all of the aspects of communal living that we derive accomplishment and meaning from.
Exactly. It capitalizes on our systems as meaning-making machines, and then hijacks those parts of our brain or our heart, or however you want to describe that, funnels it off into what's not real, and then we're lost to real meaning, which most people experience at some point. They tick off all the boxes, and then they realize life is empty and meaningless, and they have to start at the beginning again.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So before we jump off, you said the word leadership. I really want to talk about that. Is there anything from your medical training that you feel like you were able to pull forward? It's often not complete baby in the bathwater with everything. You know, you invested yourself heavily with a lot of time and energy into your medical um, education. Are there things that you have pulled forward that are still serving you?
I mean, well, of course, there is a lot of actual, truthful, factual information that you learn during this education that's just often taken out of context, or it's incomplete, or contains, important errors, or misperceptions, let's say, or pseudoscience. But understanding anatomy is definitely important, and basic physiology, although a lot of it is very incomplete. But just in general, how the body works to some degree. And, I begin to study some alternative systems of that as well, to see how they compare and contrast. But that information is useful. And then it's actually, to me, in my day-to-day life, and working with people, it's very useful to be able to interpret lab results, radiology reports, medical records, no medical terminology, to kind of decipher what they've observed, and then reformulate into what's more likely to really be going on, with an individual. Because, one of the biggest omissions that we have in the modern medical knowledge is that they don't know what causes any health problem. Many times they freely admit that they don't know the cause, and they give you a list of suspected things, and it always includes some kind of, microorganism. It includes the body attacking itself, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would this suddenly happen when it never happened in the past? Or why would nature, design something that would attack itself in the first place? There's only circumstantial or indirect evidence of this, but it's widely accepted. There's, of course, genes are blamed for many, many things, and that's a particular problem. And it kind of fits with those philosophies I was talking about earlier, because it means that, you can't do anything about it. It's just bad luck. You're stuck with it. And of course, that hides what is really going on, causing the health problems. So this is really problematic, because just logic would dictate that if you want to help someone reverse their health problem, you need to know what caused it. Because what if what caused it is something that's ongoing? Well, how are you going to overcome that without knowing what it is? So, that is a really essential ingredient in addressing your health in a way that's going to be effective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't the word idiopathic the one that describes of unknown origin? Which you hear a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And even the doctor trainees that I used to work with would make fun of that, and, called it idiopathic.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so would you say, I think I know the answer to this, but I like to just have a completely open mind when I ask a question. Are there or would there be times to turn to the medical system?
Yeah, there are a few things that they are really good at. Like, for example, if you have an accident with a power tool, and you sever a finger off or something like that, they microsurgery, reconstructive surgeons can put that back for you, and you wouldn't be able to do that yourself, right? Or find a neighbor to do that for you. Certain types of injuries, especially that, like if you have a pneumothorax, you may want a chest tube. If you have an artery that's bleeding, like from, a stabbing or a gunshot wound, or even sometimes can happen spontaneously in old people. You definitely would, you have the first line, you place a tourniquet if that's possible, or you use some kind of anti-bleeding material. And there are natural materials which are very good at that, actually, like things like zeolite and cayenne pepper. And then having a surgeon who would be able to tie off that artery so that it couldn't continue bleeding, would definitely be very helpful. And there are, of course, a few other examples, but there are also things that you would think it would be helpful to go to the hospital for, like a heart attack, for example, or appendicitis. But actually, those are things that you would do much better, actually, and you could take care of totally at home with just a small medicine cabinet with a few supplies.
And some preparation, right? Some mental preparation, because I think people will get scared, right? They get a big sign. I've even heard people will take flush niacin and go to the emergency room when they have a flush. And, without the knowledge, without knowing, like, yeah, you get a little red and it might be itchy and it's going to last 1 hour maximum, then they just go off. So, if you had a massive appendicitis going on and big pain, it could be, you could easily have, and this brings me to the point of that too, is that I think a lot of people treat natural health like a game until all of a sudden there's a serious moment or a serious threshold that they pass. And then it's like, oh, well, now all that stuff is too lightweight. I need to go for the heavy hitter. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I've seen that many, many times. And so you're absolutely right. You do need, like, if you're having a heart attack, in order to realize that you can take care of it at home and what to do, you need to know that before you're actually having a heart attack. You can't, say, oh, where's that PDF from Dr. Kaufman? Let me try to find that. Oh, that's not practical. But in addition to having just the knowledge, right, how to recognize a heart attack, what early on, what to do, or even before that, how to know, like, am I at risk of a heart attack? What's my lifestyle like? What's going on with my health? So that's all, of course, very important. But you like you mentioned, you need to believe and trust in your ability to get through the situation and to heal. And you need to trust the knowledge that these things will actually be effective. And that is the most difficult challenge, because we are ingrained with these, I don't know exactly what to call them, but, beliefs really about our own health from a very, very young age. And that, the hospital or the doctors in white coats are the only ones who can handle this situation, even though when we actually look at what are the outcomes of many people who go to the hospital with these conditions, it's not that great. But it's like people are afraid to take responsibility for themselves. And it could be often compounded by family members, friends, coworkers, neighbors, putting a lot of pressure on them to go get mainstream treatment. I mean, for example, I see that happen with every time someone has, a cancer diagnosis, which, often could be a misdiagnosis, actually. But, people get really scared with these existential issues, and they just run back to that system, and almost always to their own demise. And also the healing process itself can be prolonged and uncomfortable. Like things can get worse. You can be draining stuff out of your body, which is part of the healing, but it's very unpleasant, difficult to deal with and tolerate. And people have a hard time, like, resting. Like, for example, many times people ask me, can I do all my normal activities when I'm doing this healing protocol? And, if you were put in a hospital, you wouldn't be doing any normal activities. Right. So you want to, like, rest and let your body do this important work, and not take away from those resources by, cleaning your house or whatever. So you've got to take it seriously. You've got to have that faith, and people can do amazing. Like, I'll tell you, I had this happened 2 separate times where someone that I had either known or worked with, one of these cases, I never worked with the individual, but they basically had the symptoms of a kidney stone and were in the hospital when they called me, and they were waiting for the urologist to consult on them. Like, that's the surgeon who could do procedures to get rid of the stone. But they'd already, had it confirmed that they had a kidney stone. And I simply gave them, a hydration procedure. Very simple. Drink 8 ounces of water every 10 minutes until you feel better. And in both cases, they passed the stone before the surgeon showed up, and then they left the hospital and were fine.
Amazing.
Right? So now that's kind of a simple example, but I can't tell you, there are tons of hospital admissions because of kidney stones and tons of procedures that are done, and none of them really are necessary unless maybe someone who's got, some very strange kidney anatomy, or they have complicated all kinds of other health problems, and, they're doing poorly anyway. So there are many things like this that it's really not challenging or difficult. And, kidney stones, if they're left alone, they can get worse and cause like serious life-threatening problem, but you're going to know if that's the way it's going. Like, it's not, your body's going to send you lots of messages, saying, hey, this is getting worse, not better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so tricky because there are times where, detox really ramps up and you feel very not well, and you can feel way more not well than before you started unearthing some of that stuff in your system. So it's hard to know what you're sick of sometimes. I'm curious about, do you think there are times for diagnoses, given that they're obviously flawed at many levels and they're kind of spells on people? But would you still use, like, say somebody presented with something you couldn't really understand, and would you get them to go for diagnoses or maybe tests?
To be honest, find that it's neither helpful or necessary. Now, let me just clarify, because, a minute ago I was talking about kidney stones. So there are specific symptoms that go with specific problems. And it is useful to know those things because they can tell you what the cause is. Like, nobody has a kidney stone who's well hydrated, for example. Right? Now, it's not the only sign of poor hydration or dehydration. There are many ways that it can express, but it's good to know that, okay, like, at least part of this problem is that there's not enough water flowing through the kidneys. And, so that means that the things in the urine are too concentrated and they precipitate or crystallize, and that's what a kidney stone is, right? And that's kind of, simple chemistry. So on that level, like, what I try to understand what is likely going on in the body that could be the cause. And what a medical diagnosis is, that they're mainly tied to billing purposes. And because the amount of reimbursement that is going to be given depends in part on what the diagnosis is. And as a result, they've, expanded the number of diagnoses tremendously in every specialty of medicine over the last, century, and more so even in more recent years. So, like, there might have been rheumatism, at the beginning, one, illness that's, in the category of what they call autoimmune now. But, even since I was in medical school, there are more autoimmune diagnoses, right, than there were from the time I was in medical school, but none of them have any definitive way to diagnose. They're all just, I think it's this, I think it's that, so that if you have someone go to 3 doctors or 3 rheumatologists, they might be diagnosed with systemic sclerosis in one, lupus in another, and rheumatoid arthritis in a separate. doctor, right? And so why do we have to have different names for all these things if they're, essentially the same process, just maybe expressed different in different people? And Tom Cowan talks a lot about this with certain infectious diseases, like measles, for example, like is supposed to always present with these white spots in the back of your throat called Koplik spots, except that sometimes it doesn't. So what's the significance of those spots then? If sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, right? That's kind of meaningless. So I just listen to the story about what's going on, and then I know, like, if certain organs are involved, right? For example, if they have breathing difficulties, like most likely the lungs are involved, could be the heart too. If they have hemorrhoids and yellow eyeballs, I know that their liver is a problem, right? So I think about, okay, what are the kind of things that can damage the liver in that case? And then I ask them questions, well, tell me what you did. What kind of career did you have? Where do you live? What pharmaceuticals have you taken? What street drugs have you taken? I drank every day, for 10 years. Okay, well, that could, have damaged your liver. And then this is a liver problem now. So what are the ways that, you can support your liver healing from this? And then we talk about that. So that's more how it goes when you're talking to me, is try to find what's the root, what's the immediate experience, what parts of the body and processes does that relate to, and then what could be the root cause. And this is the same thing, by the way, if it's a, quote unquote psychological problem. Like the diagnosis of depression is completely meaningless, right? There's no way to definitively tell. And it could mean that, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me, so I'm sad. That could be diagnosed as depression. And someone else who is laying on the couch for a week and not eating could also be diagnosed with depression. But do those people have the same thing going on with them? Probably not. So I, try to find out, well, what could be the root cause of this situation. And, one thing that I even learned this in my psychiatric practice, and it's given lip service to, but no one really does this clinically. But any psychological problem can be caused by a psychological or a physical cause. And any physical problem can be caused by a psychological or a physical cause, or a combination thereof. So that distinction between, psychology, psychiatry, and the other medical specialties is really false and arbitrary.
Exactly. So, wow, the time's going really fast, but I wanted to ask you about the weight of the responsibility of being not only a health practitioner, but also a health educator to a rather large audience. And, there's a lot of, some time will also tell as we go along, and some of the fallout. I've now seen a few extremely, like, actually fully grave situations where, you could say natural health failed, but it's not really like that. It's hugely complex, like you were just saying. What causes what? There's a lot of factors involved there. But how do you handle the responsibility and the weight on your shoulders from that?
Well, this is really no different from any other health-related field, and we have to, first and foremost, realize that the mortality rate is 100%.
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about that. And, sometimes it's our time to die, and sometimes people want to die for some reason. Maybe not consciously, but they're unwilling to do anything to survive, right? Or what they need to do. There's some, barrier there. So, I have to realize that, that is just a fact of nature, and we can't overcome that. And that's why, like, this consultation model is much better, because all the responsibility for someone's health is on them. Like there's really no one else who's responsible. Sometimes, we might allow another party to take responsibility, but they have other interests to serve. I mean, even a doctor who's really well-meaning, they have to go home at some point and be with their own family and, eat a meal and stuff. They can't just be there with you the whole time to observe everything that's going on, but you can be. I mean, you're the only one who can be. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of psychological aspects that come around this, and I don't shy away from those. I talk to them with people, and I realize, and I do like have to put up some emotional boundaries to protect myself. Like earlier in my career, when I was in mainstream medicine, there was a time I worked in cancer medicine, and we had almost all the patients die. Sometimes they left the hospital and they died a couple of weeks later, but we always found out about it. And if I was mourning all those people and expressing all that sadness, I would have been crying every day. So I had to learn to kind of protect myself in this role. And it doesn't mean I don't care about people, of course. It just means that, I have to live my life. And, we can all, look at the obituaries published every day and see that a lot of people die every day. And many of them maybe didn't have to die at this time. But we can't have to accept it, and there's nothing we can do about it. I'm suddenly getting an echo for some reason. But so, that's how I deal with it essentially. And I've actually counseled some other doctors that I was training on this issue, because it is, something that you have to deal with serious health conditions. And, this is partly why some of the outcomes like that are maybe undesirable occur, like you were talking about, with people running back to the allopathic system. For example, this was a crazy coincidence, but like within 1 week, I had 2 clients roughly the same age who both had heart failure, right? And that's where, like the heart basically, whether it pumps or not, it's not enough blood is getting to the organs and the fluids backing up, like into the lungs. And one of them was adamantly opposed to going to the hospital or visiting with a doctor and would rather die than do that. And that individual actually had at least 1 heart attack at home and recovered on his own. And that's probably why he had heart failure, because part of his heart was infarcted, and that can lead to heart failure. It's one of the main causes. And then the other individual just got out of the hospital and felt better, but not great. And still couldn't function nearly at the level they could before. And so I worked with them, and they ended up doing the opposite of what the medical system tells you to do, which is they give you diuretics to remove fluid. And they actually did the opposite. They increased their fluid and did some other things. And both of them had tremendous improvement, like within a couple of days, to the point that they could resume, like one of them resumed jogging in 2 weeks. The other one could walk to the mailbox and back within a few days without getting short of breath, which was they couldn't walk 2 steps out their front door to begin with. So this was amazing. And one of them kept with it, never looked back, and did great going forward. The other one had a slip up because of something else stressful happened that brought them out of the protocol that they were doing, ate some junk food, and of course, doing that led to the symptoms coming back, and they panicked and went to the doctor, got on diuretics and blood pressure medicines, and got on the list for surgery. So, of course, I was disappointed, because I saw that they could have had real healing if they got back on track and made a serious commitment. But I have to respect that that's their choice. And, that, of course, the consequences of that choice are theirs as well. And it's not my job to say what is better for any other individual. So I accept, everyone's own autonomy and decision-making authority. I'm not a dictator or an authoritarian like our government is, and however I feel about it, I don't take it personally, and that really allows me to continue to do this kind of work without, collapsing or getting too stressed out that I can't go on.
Very good.
And one other thing I do, Beth, is that especially when I teach, larger audiences, I am extremely careful about making sure that there is good evidence to back up everything I'm saying and teaching. Right. And the same amount of scientific scrutiny that I applied to the pandemic and to germ theory, I also apply to alternative and natural remedies. And I think that is extremely vital. And there actually is enough evidence for many, many things to support it. And then I've seen people have, those kind of results when they employ those materials and procedures as well. So I'm confident that whatever I'm teaching, it may not be helpful for any given individual because there's too much complexity in an individual to know what's going to help them the most. But I know that it has the potential to really help, and that it's been proven. And so that also just gives me the confidence that whatever happens, it wasn't because I gave them, fraudulent or incorrect information.
Very good. Are you still getting an echo, by the way, or did that go away?
No, that you did something that fixed that. So
okay, excellent. Praying or something like that. Yeah.
See, that can help you heal as well.
Indeed. So with our short time, we're down to less than 7 minutes now. And I was going to ask you about psychiatric medicine, but I know you have talked at length on your channels about it. I also have done a very in-depth interview with one of my students actually that study with me. She's a psychiatrist as well. And I didn't prepare you for this, but would you be interested in talking about birth? Because I was just approached by the Free Birth Society and they would like me to do an interview. They didn't even know that I have had a free birth myself, but they were looking into the whole, should we provide them a birth certificate or should we avoid having a birth certificate? Is that something that you feel comfortable to talk on?
Yeah, that's something that I love talking about, actually. And I've collaborated a lot with Ayla Cuenca, who teaches, how to be your own doula as well as how to be a professional doula.
Right on. That's awesome. And so if we start there, like with I was just quickly looking it up. Is it illegal to not register a birth and get a birth certificate? And it says outright, yes, it's illegal in the US, but not in Canada. But you go deeper and you see,
no, that's not entirely correct, Beth. And yeah. I could see why it would say that, because if you are a licensed practitioner, it's illegal for you to not fill out a birth certificate. But if you are a parent, there is absolutely no legal obligation.
Right. When I went deeper, I saw that they're like, oh, well, they won't have education. And I think there's a little bit of protection around the abuse of there's one heinous reason why you don't register a child is because you don't want them to be safe in the world. Right. Like, like SRI and all kinds of awful things that can be done to the expendable children. So I think that's part of why, like if you got reported, your neighbor figured that you were abusing them by not registering them, then that could get you into trouble, from what I understand.
Well, there's a lot of different complexity to this situation, and to be honest, so with my youngest child, I actually recorded the birth in a family Bible, not in a birth certificate, and we had a free birth as well. And if you're working with a nurse midwife, they can fill out the birth certificate and you could not sign it. Like, they can't force you to sign it. You're not legally obligated. They can submit it still, but it's not, official without your signature. So I'm not sure exactly how that plays out in the health department. So you can still have, a licensed birth attendant and essentially do this. But it's not clear exactly if that is going to, be harmful in some way to have a birth certificate or not. It's a complex issue. In most states in the United States, what gives the state the authority to like take custody of your child, like social services and stuff, is actually the marriage license.
Wow.
Because the state owns the product of the marriage, essentially, which is the children. There's even a patent filed on that marriage technology, by the way. So by having a private marriage contract for the parents, that would, that's not a state marriage license, that would protect you against those kinds of things. I do think it's probably a good thing to have a Social Security account, if you're in the US, because you won't be able to participate in commerce without it, but you can get a Social Security account and as well as a passport without a birth certificate.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah. So if you, look on the passport application or Social Security application, you'll see that you have to, look down a little bit in the instructions, but there essentially is a path. And for your passport, for example, in the US, you actually need to go to the health department and have them issue a statement that there's no birth record for your child, so that you're not doubling up on Social Security accounts or whatever. And then you submit the family Bible. So religious records are legally valid in all countries, as far as I know. That's originally how, in the modern legal system, births were recorded, and deaths, and many other, as well as marriages, all in a Bible. And they even make special, family Bibles that have pages in the front that are designed for you to put this information instead of just putting it on the blank, page inside the cover. So, you can definitely do these things in a more private and individual way.
Right. Yeah. And then there are ways also to navigate, because if you don't have that birth certificate and social insurance number, from what I understand, like the parents could create a company for you where that would be your interaction with the public. Once they become of age, then they become not owner of that company, but something, I forgot the term of that. And then that can be the system where they interact.
Agent.
A kind of agent. Yeah, there's another word. But yeah, same kind of principle for it. And so there are ways, and it's highly nuanced, like you said, and depending, I think, a lot on what that child is going to want to do in their life, so like paying taxes and stuff.
Yeah, well, but if they want to, take out a bank loan, they need, a way to do that. Maybe they don't want to do that, but this is definitely a complicated area. But really, since 1933, there is no actual money in any of the systems. We just have essentially debt instruments, and through having these accounts, you can actually settle all debts just on paper without actually like writing a check or using your hard-earned, reimbursement to pay for those things. So it may be not possible to do that if you don't opt into some of these systems. So that's why, I think I'm leaning towards participating in that rather than doing something else. But you can also, in parallel, there's ways to set up corporate entities, or trust entities really is probably the more private way to do it. But it's very tricky to navigate how to do this in the right way. And a lot of people don't do it in the correct way. Like, for example, they set up a trust where they're the beneficiary and the trustee, and that's illegal. It's a conflict of interest. So if there's a challenge, they could, lose. So, it's very important to make sure that whatever process you're going to do to bring about the ability to participate in commerce, that you're using a method that has been tried and practiced with, 100% success rate.
Yeah, we're so new to a lot of these things that time will tell us a lot more than we know right now. I know that.
Well, Beth, we all get involved in the legal system in our lives. It's inevitable, right? We have to pay taxes. We get traffic tickets. We could get, sued. If you're a professional, there's, malpractice, right? I mean, these things are going to involve you no matter what at some point in your life, hopefully not in a really negative way. But we are given just about zero preparation or knowledge of how this system works and how we deal with it. I'm talking about the system of law and legal and law. It's not part of our compulsory schooling, really. It was in the past to some degree. They had civics courses, but even that was very rudimentary. And so how can we possibly navigate these things to our benefit when we are completely ignorant to them? And they are complex, and especially the way they're utilized by, bar attorneys and bankers and government institutions is, they're structured and worded in a way that makes it very inaccessible. So it's really a challenge, but I believe that it's a crucial part of breaking out of the chains of bondage, the invisible chains of bondage that we are under in the current system.
Indeed. Well, I think we're at that time. If you're feeling like you want to go, I'll down the line, I'll ask you for another interview if you have the time, and we'll get into some other subjects as well. But do you want to just let people know what you have coming up, what you'd like them to take note of? I assume all roads lead to andrewkaufmanmd.com.
Yeah, that's where you can get my free Ultimate Detox Protocol and sign up for my newsletter so that you can find out about all these offerings. And what I have coming up in just a couple of weeks, the second week of August, is my Love Your Liver workshop, where I talk about the importance of the liver in your health and in healing, how to know if your liver is compromised, because there can be almost no symptoms in many cases, and and why it's so important. So if people, for example, look at my most recent True Health Report on my YouTube or other channels, it talks about the connection between your liver health, allergies, and asthma, which is something mainstream medicine ignores. But you can actually completely get rid of those things, and which, people die from asthma, and they die from anaphylactic allergic reactions. And this could be prevented by doing some simple work on your liver. So if you want to learn about that, that is, I think it's going to open on Wednesday to register. So, get on my website and you'll get more information about that offer. And, I am always putting out new content on social media. All the references are on my website on the blog page, so you can check everything or find out more on a particular subject.
Very good. Yeah, I was reading your email about the course coming up. And did you know that you named it exactly what Garrett Smith calls his course, Love Your Liver?
Really?
Exactly. Yeah. Someone said it to me, like, look, they're starting to come together. That's kind of our hope in the back end. Just so you know, I'm always open to facilitating a conversation, because I think you guys have a great deal to offer each other for the good of all. So thank you so much, Andrew. I'm really, it was a pleasure to talk to you. I liked running into you in person, but this is a second good best. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day and that your work goes really well.
Thanks, you too, Beth.
Okay, you're very welcome. Good, I'm glad. Bye for now. So I will just take a few minutes to debrief and then say goodbye as well, since I was on for a good solid hour before we came on. That was fantastic. I'm so excited that Andy could make it compared to not making it. And so I apologize, you guys, I didn't get to the questions that were there. And I did want to ask, we had a conversation about toxic bile theory in Mexico very briefly before getting on a plane in the airport, and I kind of left it with him. So I'm not in the practice of bullying anybody. It doesn't work. If it did, I would, but it doesn't work. But help me hold that prayer that some of the great minds can work together on these things that we don't know very much about. So, and then I'll just see what this comment is. An unincorporated association or faith-based institution can be a way to go more private. Yeah, there's lots of nuances to that too. There's a lot of crap in that field. Really, buyer beware, big time, huge buyer beware. I was badly misled. Nothing terrible came of it, but used to believe a bunch of crap. And you were here the whole entire time. Me too. I was here the whole time. That was really fun. So I'm going to play us out an extra that's by my son, who goes by Saiko on YouTube. That spells psycho. I always like to say that. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, Polyvegas, and everyone, and just in time for the sirens to come. And yeah, so the intro and the extra were by my son. He's a wonderful guitar player, and I really encourage him to keep playing and creating music for me. You're very welcome, Veronica. Glad to have you guys here. Please do leave any comments. If you feel to subscribe on the way out, if this isn't a normal stop for you on your podcast journey, then please do subscribe to the platform you're on and wait for the podcast that will come out on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else. There's a whole list of channels that it gets uploaded to, and then somehow the channels come in along and harvest it, and so it's on a lot more channels than I even think at the end of the day. Lots of stuff going on. I will repeat that I'm hosting an open house this week on Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. I was on time. I know my calendar went off, and it's a remote thing, but it was just an interesting mix up there that actually gave me a lot of time to talk to you guys, which I love because I haven't done a lot of that anymore. So if you'd like to join me for the open house, I'll just quickly drop the link again. And this is going to be great. I'm going to talk about the power of questions and the kind of enlightenment that comes from a life of good questions, being able to ask questions. The first hour was a bonus, Jackie. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. And if you are brand new to my work and you haven't ever done a King Hero archetype quiz, you can sign up at this link. You can actually do this quiz periodically. I don't recommend doing it, every day or even every month. But once in a while, if you want to brush up on it, you just have to reach out to me on Telegram or somewhere. Telegram is a good place. I almost always forget to tell people about Telegram, which is where I spend most of my social media time, and a lot more interaction than sometimes otherwise could be. So I'm going to actually grab a link to that channel where I am on Telegram. This is the channel. If you want to come on there, it's fun. We talk and we're more candid. I don't know why we're more candid, why that would be on one platform more than the other. Maybe it's the people that are there, but you can visit me in both of those places. This is the archetype quiz where you can find out in a few minutes where you are on the path of purpose. It also does sign you up to my email list. So I'm going to send you emails about the podcasts that I do and courses that I have coming up right now, definitely letting people know about the open house on Wednesday. So if you have a desire to help people and it hasn't been going well, meaning you get stuck listening to people's problems all day and you'd like to find out how to employ the power of questions in a totally different way, then you can join me for this open house. And the link is in the notes. Darn, I don't think it's in the notes below, but it's in the chat here, and I will go and populate the notes. It should be in the notes. I think it is. Maybe. No, it's probably not. Okay, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will play you out with my son's music. Bye, everyone.